We've been in this series, long-term investments on marriage and money. And so, we've talked about just how to, step one, to building a good marriage, a great marriage, and step two, and our next steps. We talked to wives just a few weeks ago, and we talked to husbands last week. Well, don't worry, I'm not coming for anyone specific today. I'm coming for all y'all. We're gonna talk about love today. That's where Pastor Christian was going to be in this series, and I said that sounds like a great topic to talk about. Valentine's Day is coming up. Grey's Anatomy is back on TV, and Station 19. All the shows are finally back. Praise Jesus. There's something to watch on TV. We've been watching Disney Plus. We really got into these veterinary. I don't know why we watch them, because it's just weird and it's insane. And sorry if this is you. I mean, no offense, but people are paying like $3,000 to get this guinea pig's like gallbladder removed, or just insane stuff. And I'm just like, get one of those for $50 at PetSmart, but okay. I'm sorry, that might be insensitive, so please forgive me. I'll write you an apology, genuinely, if that upset you. But man, I'm just glad TV's back. I love TV. Oh, I love TV. I love love. I love love. I love the topic of love. I love to read about it in the Bible. I love to listen to love songs. There's this really great playlist on Spotify called 90s Baby Makers, which is all the best love songs from the 90s. Growing up, my parents divorced when I was about 5 years old, so I didn't really have a good, solid foundation of what love looked like in the context of marriage. But I had Everybody Loves Raymond, which is one of my favorite shows. I love that show. If I ever do premarital counseling, that will be part of it, watching a season a week, because we're in the culture of binging Netflix. Unfortunately, it's not anywhere online anymore. But that'll be part of the requirement. There's so many interesting things to learn about love and marriage from Everybody Loves Raymond. I also had a lot of Boys to Men. My mom loved 90s R&B. She loved Boys to Men. We had all their cassettes. Cassettes were these little rectangle things with tape inside, and when it would get jammed, you take a pin and you could put it in the spindle and twist it back. If you don't know what a cassette is, my generation comes right on the edge of cassettes going into CDs. But we had all the Boys to Men cassettes. We had Mariah Carey. My mom was a huge Mariah Carey fan. I mean, my goodness. And then Mariah Carey and Boys to Men did one or two songs together, and it was even better. We were big Whitney Houston fans. I learned a lot about love from Whitney. We had a little bit of Celine Dion, not as big a fan. Celine Dion would come on and my ears would go, I'd plug my ears. I wasn't as big a Celine fan. She has some good stuff. Don't look at me that way. But Boys to Men is Boys to Men. I mean, let's just be real here. But I didn't really, and I'm being honest, like that was the most exposure I got to what love should look like. TV and music. I've always grown up. I'm a TV junkie of music. I love music. It's actually really funny. A lot of the time, depending on what I'm speaking on or preaching on or studying in the Bible, often influences what I listen to in preparation. It helps me get in the zone, in the mood. So this message is brought to you in part by 90s Baby Makers on Spotify. Really great playlist. But it's a good playlist. I'll share it on Instagram. You can follow me and you'll see it. But today I want to talk, I titled the message, You Can't Win Without It. You can't win without it. And of course, the it is love. You can't win without love. Your marriage cannot win without love. Your relationships cannot win without love. And really, the more I study this, there's so many things in life in which it's really hard to win without love. Nat King Cole, I think, won a Grammy for singing about love. So, good for him. But 1 Corinthians 13 is where we'll be at this morning, verses 4, 5, 6, and 7. And honestly, I'm going to do my best to take all this and crunch it into a message because there's so much here. This is one of those passages that everyone has in their weddings. And the more I looked into it, it was just insane how much is within this passage. And I always like to get the context. My son has been learning to read. It's really fun. He'll be 6 in a month. Holy cow. He'll be 6 in a month. He's been learning to read at school. And so we were talking about context clues yesterday. Because he has this book, and I don't even remember what book it is or what's going on, but he gets, he's at that stage where he's trying to sound the words out, but if he doesn't he doesn't understand it, he'll ask for help. And so, it was like the girl, and then Ella put on the hat and she shouted, what's this word, Dad? I said, sound it out, buddy. He goes, zing? Dad, what is a mazing? I said, let's try it a little differently. Look at what's going on and then think of what words sound like amazing. He goes, it's amazing. Yes, you really understand what's going on now because you have the context. So I like to always kind of read before and after. And so what's going on here in 1 Corinthians is Paul's writing this letter to the church in Corinth and just saying, you guys got some things to work on. What was going on is they'd be in public meetings and they just stand up and shout at each other about things that happened months ago. And they were constantly arguing. There was no agreement. There was just constant tension. And Paul goes, you guys are I'm so much better than you because I got this, that, and that. And there was just always this conflict that was unnecessary. And Paul addresses it and he says, you guys are bragging about being able to do this thing and that thing and the other thing, but there's no love behind it. And it was in the context of church leadership, right? Like these what was supposed to be church leaders just couldn't get along. And so Paul says, you guys are so proud of yourselves, but there's no love there. And without love, it means absolutely nothing. So then he says, this is what it should look like. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. Love does not demand its own way. It is not irritable and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up. It never loses faith. It's always hopeful and it endures through every circumstance. And as you're reading this and you read the background, you're like, man, that sounds like a crazy marriage. This is all what happens on Everybody Loves Raymond. And they just needed love. If Ray would have just learned to love Deborah, the whole story would have been so different, right? If he could have been more patient. Now, I had this clip from Everybody Loves Raymond that I wanted to show this morning, but I couldn't figure out how to get it in and not violate any copyright stuff. But there's an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond where he gets upset with his wife because she always makes him late to things. He gets invited to the ESPN Awards, and he says, I'm leaving at 6:30 p.m. sharp. So she's like, it's like 6:28, and he's like, I'm going to go wait in the car. I just want everyone to know I'm not yelling up the stairs at her about how she's a crazy woman and my next wife won't do this and all these things. And he's just fussing, and he goes and gets in the car, and she's like, I got 3 minutes. I'll do my hair. And the curling iron gets stuck. And Ray goes to the ESPYs by himself. It's a really good episode, and he gets home, he has to deal with his decisions. But love. Because I'm such a big 90s R&B fan, I read and Googled lyrics to some of my favorite 90s R&B songs. I thought this would be such a cool, I always like to give memorable nuggets, from passages that I preach on. So I was Googling 90s R&B lyrics to see what if all the nuggets, the points from this message, were 90s R&B lyrics. It did not work out because we have to make this message PG-13. So I've got 4 simple ones. It's 2 words each. Let's start off, love gives. Love gives. And I actually, for each nugget I give you, I actually went with a different translation. It's the Passion Translation. It's a newer one. It's a really, really, really good translation, right? They're still working on translating from the Old Testament to the Passion Translation, but they have it in the New Testament, Proverbs, Psalms. But you can see look at that. It's good. Love is large and incredibly patient. Love is gentle and consistently kind to all. It refuses to be jealous when blessing comes to someone else. Love does not brag about one's achievements, nor does it inflate its own importance. Love gives. What's really cool about this message is it's not necessarily just a message for married people, but there are principles from this passage that can really apply to any kind of relationship. It can apply to you and your best friend, you and your children even, you and that person you're dating. There are a lot of principles that really can apply to virtually any relationship you might have, but we're really going to look at it in the context of marriage. If you're not married, just write down the notes and see how you can fit it into your personal relationships that aren't marriage. But it's so good. Love is large and incredibly patient. Man, I remember when we were getting married. We've been married for it'll be 8 years in June. I'm very excited. It's been a really cool 8 years. They talk about this 7-year itch. I'm like, girl, whatever the opposite of it is, of an itch is, that's what I've got, because I love being married to you. Is it a scratch or whatever it is, you know? But I love, being married has been the best and most exciting and rewarding adventure in my life. It's been the most work heavy, and rightfully so. It is work. Marriage takes work. But I heard this thing a long time ago, and it circulates all the time, that marriage is a 50-50 partnership, right? You give 50, your wife gives 50. You give 50, your husband gives 50. And there's something so wrong with that. Because if you're only giving 50, where's the other 50 going, right? And Pastor Christian talked about that a few weeks ago. If you're not giving all of yourself to your wife or your husband, where's the other little bit that you're still keeping from them at? Right? This whole idea, marriage is 50. I give half, my wife gives half, and it's 100. But marriage is really an all or nothing commitment. You know, I wrote down these, you know, we make these vows, the most popular ones, you know, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish until we are parted by death, until death does us part. But then we get this idea that marriage is 50-50. Well, I only have to give half, because we should both be contributing. But marriage should really be an all-in kind of thing. If I'm only giving 50% of me to my wife, that means 50% of me is going to other things. That means that my wife and our relationship has the same level of priority as everything else in my life. And that's when issues begin to arise. Because then there are other things that can easily, well, I gave you half of the day, I'm gonna go spend the rest of the 12 hours to myself, right? I gave you 6 months this year, I'm gonna go do my own thing for the next 6 months. See you in the fall. There's a problem in that, because marriage requires sacrifice. This is the crazy thing about marriage that I've learned, being married for 7.5 years, is you get used to you in your own ways. And so often conflict in marriage happens. You're your own person, your husband/wife, they're their own person, and then all of a sudden you've got to bring these two separate lives and beings together. And it was like we saw each other, we spent the whole day together, but then I got to go home at the end of the day. But now their bed is your bed, and your bed is their bed. Your TV is their TV, and you have to share everything. How can you share all your belongings but only part of yourself? Me personally, I love sharing everything with my wife. I love, it makes me feel better if I'm like, hey, you want to kill a bag of chips together? We've been doing Beachbody. We've been waking up most days, not every day. We've slipped up, I'll be honest. But we get up at like 5:30 in the morning, and we'll work out together and do our thing. And it's nice, because then it feels like we're getting our money's worth out of it, because we're not just paying for one of us, we're paying for both of us. But we have had to cut back on the snacks. And it sucks when it's 8 p.m. and the kids are in bed, and you're like, I could go for a bag of chips right now. And she's like, you should do it. I'm like, no, you're supposed to tell me not to. You're supposed to say no. And then I'll go, I'll get a bag of chips if you get a bag of chips. And then we have 2 bags of chips, and then everyone's happy. But marriage is it's a 101 or 0 kind of relationship. You're either all in or you're all out. If you want your marriage to win, the love in your marriage to win, you've got to give it all. The hierarchy of love in your life is love God, love people. But at the top of that people list, that should be your husband or wife. Love God, love your spouse, love your kids. Because I've also seen, and this is where we have to be very careful, and sometimes I've worked on this lately, and my kids don't always like it, but they, Daddy, can you do, right now I just need to sit with Mama for a few minutes, guys. Is that okay if I just sit with Mom? We've been playing Legos for the last 3 hours, and I'm just done. But it requires patience. I'm a very impatient person. And so what happens is because I'm so impatient, my wife, Cowdy, has to be extra patient with me. I'm one of those extra patience required kind of people. Like this morning, for example, we woke up late. We started our workout at 6. We just finished a 21-day program. It's 30 minutes a day, and sometimes I get impatient in the workout. I'm like, when is this going to be done? I scribbled a mouse. We have our little laptop set up in the living room. We're doing our thing. And I'm like, what? This is 40 minutes? I have to do this for 40 minutes? It's like, girl, it's 6:20. I got to get ready for church. We got to be there by 8. We live 7 minutes down the parkway. I was like, look, I'm just going to go on and hop in the shower, enjoy the rest of the workout, because I was getting so impatient. And then she's, it's like, all right, I'm done. Let's leave. And, she's been getting the kids ready, and I'm all, hair done, teeth brushed, mouthwash, head to toe, brushed my beard even. But I have to be patient, and she's really good at giving me patience. Next thing, here we go. Love forgives. Love gives, love forgives. Love forgives. He says, love does not traffic in shame and disrespect, nor selfishly seek its own honor. Love is not easily irritated or quick to take offense. Love forgives. If you're trying to figure out where is the place in my life I can practice the most forgiveness, or you're like, Lord, help me to forgive more. Guess where the best place to start is? Your marriage. See, wives, you get the bad reputation for this. This drives me nuts. There's all these pictures online, all the memes, the jokes, and it's like, you'll be at the store, have a minor disagreement. She'll bring up something from 6 months ago that made her mad, right? I see these all the time. And I'm like, at first I'm like, no, it doesn't really sound like her. Well, there was at one time, nah. But then I'm like, at least she's talking about it. Because what do, husbands, right? We get upset about something. We're like, just going to step back here, take a sip. I'll get over it. I'll forgive her. I'll get over it. I won't worry about it. And then the next time it happens again, she makes you frustrated, whatever it is. And you're like, it's fine, it's cool, it's cool. I'll get over it. I'll forget about it. Forgive and forget, right? Forgive. I'm done. I'm good. I'm not upset. Cool as a cucumber. And then it happens again. And you're like, she's done this so many times, but it's good. I'm all right. I'm good. No, I'm not. You drive me, blah, blah, blah. At least she talks about it, man. We have a tendency to just hold it in because we're men. We can't have no feelings. We'll forgive and forget, right? We're cool as a cucumber. We'll just beach body it all out, 1, 2, I'm so mad, she drives me nuts. And then what happens is like a volcano, just, and we find ourselves fussing and yelling because we said, I'll forgive her. I love her. She's so beautiful. Shoot, that's my boo thing. We're like, I'll forgive, I'll get over it, I'll forgive her for it, and we never do because we're men, we have this tendency to compartmentalize. But what happens when you compartmentalize is the shelf builds up, and when the shelf has too much on it, boom, and then you say all these things that you didn't mean to say, and you unleash on your wife, and then you get done, you're like, I feel great, and you look at her and she's in tears because you just fussed at her about the 18,000 things you've been keeping track of for the last few months because you forgot about the whole part where it says love doesn't traffic in shame or disrespect, it keeps no record of wrongdoing, but here you've been keeping this list in your head. At least she talks about it. Love forgives. It's not easily irritated. It's not quick to take offense, right? It means that love forgiving means that you're willing to have the tough conversation that when you have conflict, you're willing. See, I'm the kind of person like, baby, I'm so sorry. I know I upset you. Let's talk about this now. And she's like, I just need a few minutes. I'm like, but I'm a man. I got to fix everything. Let's have this conversation now, girl. Come on. She's like, I just need a few minutes. I'm like, nah, let's talk. We have to talk it out. You need some time to cool off a little bit because you're not going to get anywhere when you're already up here. You got to come back down a little bit, but you have to be willing to have the hard conversation, the tough conversation. And I don't know about you guys, but this series has been really good in our house. Man, we've had some really good conversations in our marriage, about our marriage, based off of some of the things Pastor Christian has been preaching about each week. But man, love forgives. It means if you're gonna let it go, you gotta be like Elsa. Everyone makes that joke, but there's a reason. And you gotta let it go. I'll let it go. I'll get over it. Then let it go. if it happened 6 months ago, leave it there. There's no need to bring up, because the joke is they bring it up from 6 months ago. Well, we'll bring it up from 6 months ago, and then 5 months ago, and then 4 months ago, and we'll be like, at 12:39 p.m. on September 15th, you made me really upset, and I said I'd get over it, but then you did the same thing on October 12th at 11:59 a.m. Why is it always at lunchtime, right? And we'll keep this list, and we just can't let it go and forgive. But love forgives. It doesn't traffic in shame, because we get competitive. We're like, yeah, I got to make her feel bad. Or wives will be like, I got to make him feel bad so he knows how upset he made me. And this is the portrayal we get on television. Right? I love Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy is the worst place to go for any information and advice on love and relationships, because they do all the relationship stuff without the love. I made a list of all the things you can do without love in a marriage. And you can do just about anything without love. I mean, this is the culture we're in. You can take care of the kids without love. You can do things, get gifts. Right? You can do all these different things. You can sleep together without love. Don't tell me I'm wrong. That's what you see on TV. That's the whole premise of Grey's Anatomy. He's cute, let's go to the on-call room. Man, love forgives. And love is essential if you want your marriage to win, if you want your relationships to win. Love reveals. That's a good one. Love reveals. Love joyfully celebrates honesty, and it finds no delight in what is wrong. Wouldn't it be awesome if every time our wives or husbands, ladies, had a victory, we were just like, good for you. And not like, good for you, but like, that's awesome. You go, girl. You go, man. You get that work done. Love joyfully celebrates honesty, and it finds no delight in what is wrong. Love reveals. I had someone give me this advice about marriage a long time ago when we were engaged. They say, in marriage, the key to successful marriage is to keep things hot. And I was 20 at the time, so I was like, I like where this is going. All right, keep it hot. But then they said, no, you got the wrong idea. Keep it honest, keep it open, keep it transparent. Keep it hot. Keep things honest. Don't hold things from your spouse. If you're upset about something, tell them. If you're having a rough day, tell your spouse. Man, there have been times in our marriage, I remember specifically, there was one night like a year and a half, 2 years ago, where I just thought, I get up in my feelings sometimes. I permit myself to cry a couple times a year, and it's not for any other reason than I just hate to cry. Like it doesn't feel good to me, right? But then it's one of those things where after you cry, you're like, oh, that actually does feel good. Let me try it. Nope, not happening. But I'm not a crier. I was when I was a kid. I cried about everything, and maybe that's why I don't cry much now. But I'm not a crier. But I remember one night I came home, and I was just in this funk. I'd been listening to music in the car, and I just came home, and I came in our room, and my wife could sense something was wrong. She said, what's wrong? And I just collapsed on the bed, and I just started bawling like a baby. Right? I just had all these feelings built up, and I just started bawling like a baby. And then afterwards, I cried for like 20 minutes, and she cried. We cried together. It was a beautiful moment. It was just like nothing in the movies. We cried together, and then she said, do you want to talk about it? And so I said, yeah, actually. And so I told her, just kind of how I was feeling. There was another time, like a year ago, I had a lot of hurts and frustrations and just things I'd never worked through properly. Amazing how that stuff comes up in marriage. And I got to this point where I realized it was starting to hinder me as a person. So I actually went and I started talking with someone for a while. Because it's like, I can't be a good husband or a good father. I can't be a good pastor or anything if I'm not taking care of my own stuff. I can stand up here and tell you guys, you got to do this, X, Y, and Z. But if I'm not taking care of me, then I'm just a punk who's saying one thing and doing another. So I decided I've got to get these things worked out. And one of the big things was I had to talk to Cowdy more about what I was dealing with. And so it's been a really crazy last year of our marriage where like she upsets me and I say, you're annoying me right now. Can you please stop? Because for so long in our marriage, I would do I'll get over it. I'll deal with it. I'll forgive her. And then I wouldn't. And so it was like this pivotal crossroads in our marriage where all of a sudden I was honest with her. And love finds no delight in what is wrong, right? When your spouse makes a mistake, that's not the time to go, yeah, you messed up. No, that's the time to say, how can I help you back from where you are? Love reveals, be a team. We had a really tough conversation a few months ago, and I'm not airing our dirty laundry, okay? They always tell you to preach from where you're at and where you've been, and so I'm being hot with you guys. I'm keeping it hot this morning, right? Honest, open, transparent. But we had this conversation a few months ago because we're both kind of competitive people. We both, and that's just how it is. But we also take offense really easily. And so Cowdy would correct something to me or just make a comment that was just like, that's not my favorite sweater. This sweater. I like this sweater. But it was just it would be something just dumb like that. And I go, well, whatever, I'll go change. And I get sassy with her about it, right? And then I'd make a comment, and we found that we were treating each other as like adversaries constantly. And it was always a who can come out on top kind of thing. And so often we couldn't just make a simple comment because we just assume immediately. And that some of that was just things we had to work through, our own hurts we've endured over life. But we got to this point in our marriage where we said, no, we are a team, and we've got to remember that. So now anytime we start to get kind of iffy and antsy with each other, sassy, we'll say, no, we're a team, remember. Or if there's something that she needs to tell me or something I need to tell her, I'll say, I want you to know I'm telling you this because we are a team, right? We are a team. But I need you to know this. And so we actually, to really hammer it in, above our bed, when you walk in our room, there's this little 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that we thumbtack to the wall, and it says at the top, we're a team. That means loving each other when it's hard. That means building each other up when we don't feel like doing so. And we did this thing called affirmation hour for a while. It was really affirmation 5 minutes. But in order to break this cycle of getting offended so quickly and easily, we got into this habit where every day at 8 p.m. we'd get a little ping on the phone. To get in the habit of saying nice things, we'd say we'd affirm each other. And it sounds goofy and silly, and honestly, it sounds really cheesy, like Nicholas Sparks corny, but it really helped our marriage because we got in this habit of every day intentionally saying nice things. And it couldn't be something we said the night, it had to be something new every time. Can I tell you, when you take the time to really admire your spouse, there's so many things you can admire, right? When you take that time to really think about the things you enjoy about your spouse, this is my challenge to you. Have an affirmation hour tonight. The halftime show is not going to be anything special, so mute the TV and take that time rather than watching Shakira, who's an honest woman because her hips don't lie, right? But take that time and affirm your spouse. Just take that time and tell them the things you love about them, right? Just take that time, and I'm serious. This will change. I'm convinced this changed our marriage, is just this 5 minutes of affirmation hour every day. Affirmation hour sounds a lot better than 5 minutes. You could take an hour if you want. But it got us in, and we even signed it because we wanted to be serious about this. If we're going to commit to this, we need to commit to it. We don't do it regularly anymore. One of my love languages is words of affirmation, so I'm really good at verbalizing how much I love my wife, how beautiful she is, and all these things. Hers is like gifts of service. But I found that I wasn't looking for it because it's not naturally one of my love languages. And Paul tells the Corinthians, you can speak all the languages of the world, but if there's no love, it doesn't matter, right? But one of my love languages is not service, acts of service. I love to do things for my wife, right? I love to do, you want a bag of chips? Bet. I love to do things, but that's not one of mine. And so I began to slowly see over the last even couple of months that this woman is constantly doing things in our house to serve me, to serve our family. She is like a servant of a wife, and I mean that in the most endearing way. My wife is constantly doing things. I had this ability to keep track of things, not just wrongdoings, but Austin doings, right? So I'd be like, we'd get home from work, hey, just want you to go chill in the room. I'll take care of dinner. I'll make a nice dinner, get the kids bathed, get the jammies on, matching jammies. I'll take the Instagram picture for her, portrait mode on my iPhone, shot on iPhone 11, the whole thing. And I'll send it, I'll say, you got the photo and everything, girl. You had a nice day. Been doing Beachbody too, so what's up? Kids are in bed now, And she'd be like, I'm tired. I'd be like, that's cool, that's cool. We'll watch Dr. Pole on Disney Plus. We'll watch a veterinary show, go to bed. But I've been doing Beachbody. And then I get upset because what I envisioned for the night is not the way the night went. But I found in marriage that you've got to not just reveal the things in yourself, but you've got to reveal the things that you see your spouse doing to serve and to love you. You've got to see the love language they're speaking and joyfully celebrate that honesty that you're identifying. Man, I'm a list person. I almost started making a list just so I could really visualize all the things that my wife does to serve me as her husband. Because it's just so astounding when you take the time to see the things your spouse does for you. It makes you love them even more because you've now revealed something that you didn't see before. And love finds no delight in what is wrong. When things go bad, your job is not to put your spouse down and go, ha ha, sucker. No, your job is to say, how can we get back to point A? How can we turn this around? Because guess what? They're going to mess up because they're just like you and me and they're human. And the last thing, love protects. This is one of my favorite parts of this whole passage. Love protects. Love is a safe place of shelter, for it never stops believing the best for others. Love never takes failure as defeat, for love, it never gives up. Love is a safe place of shelter. What is a shelter? It's a place where you feel safe. It's a place where you can relax. It keeps you warm, right? It's a place where you can be vulnerable. A shelter is a place where you're fed. When was the last time you fed your spouse? And I'm not talking about dinner, but when was the last time you invested in them? When was the last time you took the time to encourage them? Right? When was the last time you really took the time just to build up your spouse? When was the last time you helped protect them? I am a protector. And I used to rationalize my not telling Cowdy things as I'm just protecting their heart. But it was those tough conversations that would protect our marriage. See, love should be such a place in your marriage, and loving your spouse should be such a thing that it protects your marriage from anything that comes in. Financial troubles come in. Well, our marriage is a place of shelter, a place of love. We'll work through it, right? Tragedy strikes. A family member passes away. We have each other. We'll get through this. Things will happen in life, and if your marriage is not protected by love and Jesus, it'll start to hurt your marriage. Because marriage is a place of support. There should be no other person in my life that I go to more than my wife when I need support, when I need encouragement. When I'm frustrated with her, the first and only person I should go to about that should be my wife. Because what happens in marriage is you get frustrated. It's just inevitable. You're with them all the time. And then you start to open doorways or poke holes in that shelter when you start to air that dirty laundry to a friend, a coworker. And then what happens is, this is how affairs happen. Because you break that shelter up. Love is a safe place. Love should be the kind of place where you can tell each other what's really going on. And you know that it's a place where you're safe. You know it's a place where you can be comforted. You know it's a place where you can confess and confide in your wife, your husband, and know that they're not going to go and tell everyone what it is that you're struggling with. And I love never takes failure as defeat, for it never gives up. This was the problem with the Corinthians. They were like, yeah, we love each other. Oh, they wronged me so bad. In your marriage, man, even when stuff happens, My hope and my challenge is that you would have such a love between you and your spouse that, yes, this was a bump in the road, but it's not the end of the road. And this all starts by founding your marriage in Jesus, because your marriage you will never really know love as you should if you don't understand the love that comes from Jesus. It is so important for you to know Jesus. It is so important for you to bring him into the middle of your marriage. Yes, that means saying, sorry, no bedside Baptist today. We're going to church. Because if you can model that in your marriage, your kids will see that, and they'll model that when they get married one day. They'll find themselves a good spouse that goes to church. Because this is one of the other big things that breaks up marriages is conflicting beliefs, conflicting faiths. If you want to protect your marriage, you make Jesus the cornerstone, the foundation of your marriage. Man, love gives, love forgives, love reveals, and love protects. There's so much more in this passage, but if I could sum it up in 8 words, those would be it. How to invest in your marriage? You give, you forgive, you reveal, you protect. With love. Because you can't win without it.